Arsenal 2, PSV 2 last night. It might have been a bit of a nothing game after the result in the first leg. However, it was still a nice, refreshing change from the pace and the stodginess of the Premier League recently. Today, I am going to be going through all the fringe players who got a chance in this game and assessing their performance and what it might mean for the rest of their season. Let's get into it. Yes, hello and welcome back to another episode of Arsenal Unfiltered, your 3 times a week dose of Arsenal coverage with me, your host Mark. I hope you are well wherever you are listening from. As you heard at the top, last night Arsenal played a 2-2 draw with PSV to confirm a 9-3 aggregate victory, and it wasn't ever really a game in any jeopardy. The first leg kind of had tied the result up, but like I said, a really nice change to watch a game where we've got a bit of space and we've got, some, I guess, attacking intent is not the right words, because I think we've always got attacking intent, but we've got possibilities and different ways of attacking. The Premier League recently has felt very, very stodgy is the word I keep using, but we keep facing the same tactics and not being able to come up with solutions, and it's getting a bit Groundhog Day-ish. It's a real struggle to keep watching. So the Champions League for me over the recent weeks at least has been nice light relief. 7-1 is obviously a great time, and I enjoyed last night as well. I think it was disappointing not to get the win just on the night, but obviously the tie was completely wrapped up, and there was no need for us to overburden ourselves trying to get the win. I do believe there would have been extra prize money in it for us, but when you think about, this season, the context of this season, I think probably just making sure that we come out with no more injuries and keeping players fresh as well is more important than the extra kind of 1 to 2 million that I think we would have got for a victory last night. So I can understand why we didn't go for it in the latter stages. And PSV were obviously significantly better. As much as we played a weaker 11 and didn't quite go for them in the same way, they didn't give us quite as much space. They still gave us space, but it wasn't quite as easy for the likes of Declan Rice and Zinchenko to just run through and get sight of goal. I'm going to go through the lineup because obviously the lineup's very interesting, and then I want to analyse the game rather than going through it step by step. I want to analyse it through the lens of these players we haven't seen in a while. Your Zinchenkos, your Sterlings, your Ben Whites, players like that, and just see how they got on, analyse their games, and talk a little bit about whether it means there's still a chance for them to be involved this season. We've got a very strange end to this season coming up, and we now have a tie set up with Real Madrid, a 2-legged tie set up with Real Madrid, of course. And we'll want to have our best team available for that. So will that mean more rotation in the Premier League for a couple of these games to make sure that we have, fresh Gabriel Martinellis and fresh Martin Odegaards to go and play Real Madrid at the Bernabeu and at the Emirates? Very exciting that they will be at the Emirates. A little bit nerve-wracking as well, because they are obviously a stunning team. Granted, looks like they got quite a big slice of luck last night, and we might come on to that at the end, because I think that's such a strange moment having seen it this morning. But let's start with Arsenal, and let's start with the right lineup. I obviously predicted a much stronger lineup than this in my preview pod. I did not think Arteta would rotate as much as he did. He went big. I did predict Zinchenko to start, but I predicted him to start at left back. Instead, we had Miles Lewis-Skelly at left back with Gabriel Kivior and Ben White. I thought Gabriel and White would play. I thought Saliba would also play. I was really under the impression that Arteta would go out there, try and rotate as much as possible, but still put out a strong enough lineup to make sure he goes and gets the win. Obviously, David Raya in goal. I don't think he wanted to risk Neto. And then in the midfield, I didn't get this one right either. Obviously, like I say, Zinchenko was playing in that number 8-10 role, the kind of Martin Odegaard spot, which was a really interesting development. That has changed so quickly on Arsenal fans, hasn't it? We spent so long kind of thinking, what about Zinchenko in the left 8? What about Zinchenko in there? And for ages, we were told, that's not something Mikel Arteta was interested in, and clearly with his actions, he never tried it. Zinchenko, whenever he was always playing from left back. And then in recent weeks, necessity drives innovation, doesn't it? And we've seen Zinchenko on the left 8 and now on the right 8 as well, playing the Martin Odegaard role. So really interesting. He was accompanied by Jorginho, who I thought had a difficult night. We'll come on to him. And Declan Rice, who, that guy just seems to be able to go and go and go. Up front, it was probably our strangest three for the year so far. Raheem Sterling on the right wing, the only recognised forward out of these three. Mikel Merino, I think that was always going to happen. And Kieran Tierney on the left wing. Kieran Tierney. So I really didn't think that would be how Arteta played it. I thought it would be far stronger than that. We obviously had the likes of Gabriel Martinelli, Ethan Nwaneri, Trossard on the bench. Two of those got on in terms of Martinelli and Trossard. I thought Martinelli would play a little bit more. Probably worth just talking about that quite quickly before we come on to the fringe players who played. He only got like 11 minutes, excluding injury time, which I thought was strange. I would have thought there would be an opportunity to get him on as quickly as possible. Noting in the previous game, the Manchester United game, obviously we needed to win that, so he brought him on earlier because of that, but I think he got about half an hour in that game and looked fine to my eyes. Obviously, we don't have all the background data about load and their training rates and stuff like that, so we don't know their physical condition perfectly, but I thought that was a sign. Okay, we'll see a lot of Martinelli in this game to help him get up to speed for the Chelsea game. Not the case. Only 11 minutes. Really quite odd, I thought. He didn't really have too much time to impress, but I'm just delighted to have one of our first choice forwards back, having gone so long without any of them. So yeah, I'm hoping he will start in the game against Chelsea. I'm kind of hoping he'll start up front. I'm kind of hoping that. We'll obviously talk about that in the preview pod for the Chelsea game. But we'll see how that develops. It's an interesting one. Okay, let's go through this then in the eyes of the players who don't play much. And I'm going to start... Who am I going to start with? I'm going to start with Raheem Sterling. So Raheem Sterling, I've slated him a lot on this podcast, and I've basically made my peace with this guy as, a transfer that just has not worked, and someone who we are just going to have to use for the rest of the season to take minutes off people rather than giving meaningful contributions to the team. I was obviously proved wrong last night. 2 assists for Raheem Sterling last night and a fantastic first half performance. I thought he did drop off a little bit in the second half. Obviously, we started to make changes. That disrupted our flow. I think it was 2 teams going through the motions at that point. So yes, it will have affected his performance, of course. Of course it will have done. But in the first half especially, he was very, very busy. And I think he had his best half, definitely, in an Arsenal shirt. But also his best individual moment in an Arsenal shirt. He obviously got off to a flying start with the assist for the Zinchenko goal. I think, the long ball is played forward and it ends up in a foot race between Raheem Sterling and I believe Malacia at left back. And, he does well. He gets there and then manages, after basically, or just before being fouled, I should say, manages to squeeze the ball out to Zinchenko. It's a good piece of play. It's quality, it's fast thinking. Zinchenko obviously makes the goal what it is. It's fantastic from him, and we'll talk about him very, very soon. Yeah, it's a good start, but the second assist for me was really good from Raheem Sterling. And for a player who I've watched for so many weeks be just basically unable to beat his man, like it's been rough. This was very impressive to see him beat 2 players in kind of one action. He goes past the first and then continues with that speed and pace to go past the second PSV defender. And what have we been crying out for in recent weeks? Quality. We've been crying out for quality, final actions, quality crosses, quality passes. Raheem Sterling really delivered in this moment as he dinked the ball over to an on-rushing Declan Rice, who... It was a simple finish for Rice. He's not going to miss those. I think Rice is in fantastic form. The way he's playing at the moment, that's a 100% chance of a goal for him. But I was just so impressed with Raheem Sterling's contribution in that moment. As well as the quality, we've been crying out for people to do things at pace, and he did not hesitate. He did not look around when he beat his first man to try and find a pass or anything like that. He had one thing on his mind. It was Nwaneri-esque. You know, when Nwaneri picks the ball up and goes, I know what I'm doing with this. That's what Sterling created in this moment, and I was super, super impressed. I was dying for him to get a goal. Me and my fiance were watching, both very, very happy for him, because I think this situation with Raheem Sterling has been more sad than it's been frustrating. A player who was so good in the Premier League and the Champions League, to be fair, has, been at the top level of the English game, has come to Arsenal for kind of the twilight of his career, to try and rekindle something that he wasn't going to have at Chelsea. And it's been a struggle watching him toil away, not be able to beat his man, not be able to rely on pace and physicality like he has done in previous seasons, and finishing as well. Hopefully, I personally, I believe that the issues we've seen with Raheem Sterling have been from a physical point of view, and maybe he caught the PSV team on a bad day again, and he was able to get ahead of them. Sorry, had to pause for a sneezing break there. Yeah, get ahead of them, get around them, because they weren't quite at the top level. That's kind of what I believe. But maybe there is a school of thought that it's just been a pure confidence thing. And maybe if that is true, maybe last night can give him some confidence going forward, so that we can at least rely on him. The fact that he didn't come on against Manchester United was incredible. Kieran Tierney came on ahead of him, and the fact that no Arsenal fan really blinked at that says a lot about Raheem Sterling's performances. If it is a confidence thing, let's hope that is the night, the evening that brings him back some confidence. I mean, he needed a little bit more confidence in the moment just before half time, didn't he? PSV corner, we claim it and break away. Zinchenko plays a great ball through, and it's Raheem Sterling basically all on his own. The PSV defenders are straining to catch up with him. He takes it to the left of the goalkeeper and tries to dink him with his left foot. A bit of a strange decision, but I think he's running across the defender to try and protect the ball, so I kind of understand that a little bit. It would have been absolutely brilliant for him to score that goal, wouldn't it? It would have been a fantastic. I mean, it is a fantastic evening. Let's not get that wrong. But it would have been an even better evening for Raheem Sterling if he'd managed to get a goal. For context, it was a 0.44 XG chance. 0.44. That is a very high XG for an individual chance. So yeah, I mean, it would have been great to see him finish that, and it would have capped off comfortably his best Arsenal performance. I still think it is his best Arsenal performance. He did a good job, and I think one thing that concerned us all when we first started watching Raheem Sterling is the way he wasn't sort of tracking in. I think he's got there now. He's starting to pop up a little bit more in front of Ben White, and really make sure that he's doing his defensive work. So a positive night for Raheem Sterling. I just hope it's the start of something, that we can start to bring him on in games where we need a goal and he can contribute something. That would be a really nice place to get back to. Next up, Zinchenko. Yeah, so I thought Zinchenko was really good last night. I must admit, I was surprised to see him in the lineup where he was. I predicted him at left back, but he obviously played in the Martin Odegaard role and kicked off, as we already spoke about, kicked off his performance with a fantastic goal. A very, very low XG chance, 0.04 XG chance, but he curls it with a real assuredness and quality into that far corner, and I think it started us off on a great position. I have real worries about this game. One, the atmosphere I was concerned about. It didn't pan out that way. PSV obviously contributing to that, but Arsenal fans doing a great job and a far fuller Emirates Stadium than I expected. And I thought with all the rotation, there might be some kind of lack of fluidity, but getting an early goal always gives a team confidence. It gives a team confidence, but it also gives a team that kind of, I think it gives them a bit of a permission to play. They've already gone and done the thing, they've already gone, okay, cool, we are ahead. And it settles the nerves throughout the team, throughout the players who haven't been playing. And I think the thing when you rotate is you lose a lot of automatisms. You know, those moments where you just know where your other players are because you've played with them so much. You rotate a lot of players, you don't have that. And when you don't have that, getting an early goal or starting a game very well will allow you that freedom to not second guess things, you know, and so the automatisms kind of develop naturally within the game because you're not having to second guess and going, oh, is Raheem there? Is Mikel Merino up there? You're just kind of going, I've got a bit of freedom. There's a bit of a weight off our back. We're not desperate for a goal right now. We're in the lead and I can play that pass. I can do it first time, do it early. And I think we saw that a little bit in the first half. Arsenal would playing quickly. Obviously, PSV afford us a lot more space than Premier League teams do. So they weren't collapsing back into that kind of, back five with three in front, which is so frustrating to watch. They weren't collapsing back into that, and that gave Zinchenko space to kind of run the game. His pass map his accurate passes is not great, but I think that's mainly because he has tried a number of good and progressive passes. You know, he's only made 72% of his passes, but on the night it didn't feel like he was lax in possession. Watching him, I felt like he was trying the right things, trying the right passes. He obviously plays the key pass and what should be an assist for Raheem Sterling. I was really impressed, and I have never really considered him on that side of the pitch. I remember him popping up there once for a goal, I think against Everton, or was it an assist? Might have been an assist for Bukayo Saka. For when he was playing left back, he just kind of drifted up into that number 10 role and was there alongside Bukayo Saka, put him in. It was an assist because Bukayo Saka scored into the top corner with his right foot. I thought that's the only time I've really seen him over there. So I thought this was quite a strange choice to put him in the 10 role. I could definitely see him being in the 8, the left 8, but the right 8/10, I did not see that coming, and he adapted really, really well. And it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because earlier in the season, we played for so long without a Martin Odegaard in the team, and we tried to resolve that by having Kai Havertz and Leandro Trossard up front. A lot of fans were screaming for Ethan Nwaneri to play a bit more in that period. I still maintain that Arteta made the right call there because that is a very, very tough position to play. You have to do a lot of different jobs, and I think Ethan Nwaneri has really proved his worth and proved that right wing for him right now is where he needs to be. So I don't disagree with the idea that we couldn't play Nwaneri there, but now, having seen that performance last night, would it have been worth trying Zinchenko? Will Arteta look back on that and say, maybe I could have done something different? Because that would have allowed us to stay in the 4-3-3 system. And I think at that time, teams were still going low block, mid block against us, but not quite as extreme as we've seen recently, right? Not quite as over the top on it. And I just wonder if Zinchenko, he's got a lot of quality. He can pass the ball great. Is he Martin Odegaard? No. Is he as defensively astute as some of our other players? Absolutely not. But I do think in a team where you have Saliba, you have Timber, Partey, Rice, could we have afforded Zinchenko in that period? Will that be something we look back on and regret? I don't know. Maybe not, but I just think this performance last night, it took me by surprise that he was so good and so natural and so comfortable in that position. Obviously, he plays there for Ukraine, so maybe it shouldn't have taken me by surprise, but I was impressed with his performance, and he was quite progressive, tried to get things done, tried to make things happen. Really, really impressive, and obviously gets his goal with a real moment of quality. Really pleased for Zinchenko because I think he's Arsenal's forgotten man, right? He came in at a time where we really needed quality players, and him and Jesus, in Arteta's words, changed our world. And since that period, he's really fallen down the pecking order. He is a high-quality pro whose pride, I would imagine, will be hurt a little bit by what has happened at Arsenal and losing his place to Calafiori and losing his place to Miles Lewis-Skelly, Timber at the start of the season as well. So I think that will have hurt his pride. So I'm very, very pleased for him to go and get a really good performance. Hello everyone. thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you're like me, you finished watching an Arsenal game and you're already looking for the next bit of Arsenal coverage you can find. If that sounds like you, follow or subscribe to Arsenal Unfiltered on your podcast app of choice right now to make sure you don't miss a single episode from me. I'm here 3 times a week, reviewing matches and covering Arsenal news, and I'm so excited to have you all here as well. Thank you very much. And the final player I want to talk about in decent amount of detail from last night is Jorginho. Unfortunately, I thought Jorginho had a very poor game. He was captain on the night with no Martin Ødegaard, so he filled in. And Jorginho is a player who I've grown accustomed to. Whenever he comes into the team, I'm always like, okay, he's not my favourite player, but I know we're getting 7 out of 10 out of him. So I can relax, and I feel quite assured when Jorginho's on the pitch that he's going to pass the ball well, he's going to pass forward well, he's going to coach the team around him, and he's going to be very secure and tidy. That's kind of how I feel about him. Last night was quite the opposite, unfortunately. I thought he was at fault for both of the PSV goals and, probably the weak link in this team. I feel for him because his Arsenal career is clearly coming towards the end, and he will, it looks like, will not be signing a new contract. So he will be departing in the summer. I think that is the right call from the club, and if last night's performance is anything to go on, it is definitely the right call from the club. Obviously, the first goal, the ball is turned over, and Jorginho just does not track his man. That means Gabriel has to shift across. I think Miles Lewis-Skelly can take some blame in this moment as well, because when Gabriel shifts across and when actually just the ball is turned over and PSV start moving towards the goal, he doesn't do enough to collapse into shape to get on the outside of Gabriel and help him out. If Miles Lewis-Skelly collapses earlier and quicker, the PSV player, it's Perisic, isn't it, who eventually gets on the ball. He doesn't get there. So there is that, but Jorginho is the first mistake. He doesn't track his run, and that allows PSV to break. And then obviously the second goal is something we just do not associate with Jorginho at all. I guess the first one, there's a fitness thing, there's a speed thing. They're all things that, we know about Jorginho and we accept as his limitations. Did he have the legs, to keep up, and the pace, I should say, to keep up with the PSV attack in that moment? Maybe not. Maybe he just didn't have the reaction times, all of that sort of stuff. But the second one, that's not him. He loses the ball very, very cheaply in the midfield. It is obviously a wonderful finish by, I'm going to try it, Driouche? I'm not sure. But it's a wonderful chip over David Raya. So, look, there's plenty for PSV to do, and I don't want to take anything away from them in that moment, because I thought both of their goals, the finishes, were terrific, absolutely terrific. But Jorginho obviously gives it away so cheaply, and it's disappointing, right? It is disappointing. The reason I think it is so disappointing was because both were entirely avoidable. Jorginho just needs to track his man and needs to deal with that ball a lot better. But also because I think we needed a win, guys. And I know, yes, we're through, and there was no jeopardy on the game and all of that sort of stuff. That's all great, right? I appreciate that. That's an important element to this. And we shouldn't be annoyed at a 9-3 aggregate victory. And I'm not trying to come from that point of view. But look, this is a team who are not winning much in sort of general play and general games. So we have now 1 win in 5. That was the 7-1 against PSV. We now have 3 draws, Forest, Manchester United in the second leg against PSV, and the defeat to West Ham. Extend that out. It's only 2 wins in 7, just beating Leicester City and a defeat to Newcastle United. The game before that was the 5-1 against Manchester City. God, that feels a long time ago, doesn't it? So I felt like we did need to win it, and we'd done enough to win it. Let's be honest. We'd done plenty enough to win it. So frustrating to give up both of those goals so easily, and for them both to come through. Jorginho, I think, kind of rubber stamps where he's at in his Arsenal career. He will not be signing a new contract. I'd be amazed if something changes in that department. disappointing for him, but ultimately we won't pay any cost to it, and we will play Real Madrid in the next round. Quickly, before we talk about Real Madrid, let's have a quick chat about some of the other players. So obviously, Miles Lewis-Skelly, he came in and had a lovely moment in attack, nearly scored a goal. I think that would have been really nice for him. He has not scored in Champions League yet. He scored in the Premier League, obviously against Manchester City, quite famously. It was a really lovely move. Calafiori, who replaced him, also was part of a really lovely move. Some great flicks in there and some lovely interchange. Again, runners, kind of people moving off people and doing things at pace. We just need, if we get a bit of space, we can do that. And I think these 2 games against PSV have evidenced that even our kind of second, third string 11 is able to do that when there's just a little bit of space afforded to them. So that was a really good chance. Not a finish like he did in this first round, which was so assured, but Walter Benitez makes a good save nonetheless. Yeah, I think, there's probably not too many other people to talk about. Jakub Kiwior had a bit of a non-event game, didn't really do much. Kieran Tierney, much the same. Nothing terrible, but nothing really standoutish. And I can't see either of those players getting a ton more minutes for the rest of the season. I think if there is a player who will come out of last night with the most credit, it will be Zinchenko. I think Sterling has done very well, obviously, but he probably just has too many negative marks against his name for this season. And I think Zinchenko really showed, actually, I'm still here, I can still contribute. And there might be an opportunity for him to take some minutes off Odegaard, take some minutes off Rice in the left eight, and maybe contribute something when we need a goal in a game. I'm sure we will be in the scenario for the rest of the season with 15 minutes left and we desperately need to score. So I can see that being a thing, and Zinchenko maybe after the back of this performance kind of getting some minutes and showing his worth. The one big positive, well, not one big positive, but another big positive of last night was Ben White. His first start, I think how many minutes did Ben White get? It was a fair few, more than I expected actually. Let's just double check that. Yes, 79 minutes he got. 79 minutes before Jurrien Timber came on to replace him. Not his sharpest, but frankly I'm not evaluating Ben White too harshly at the moment, because it's going to be similar when Bukayo Saka comes back, and Kai Havertz next season as well. Long time out. They're going to need time to get back up to speed, back up to sharpness, and I think Ben White absolutely deserves that chance to get up to speed. This will be a game where the Arsenal fitness coaches and the Arsenal physios will be looking at him going, okay, he's got through 79 minutes, that's fantastic. That's another step in his recovery back to full fitness, full sharpness. Whilst I didn't think he was super sharp defensively, there were a few moments going forward where I thought, oh God, that's why we like Ben White. He gets around people. I think Timber and White are very, very good, but just subtly different. Timber is fantastic in terms of his defensive work, absolutely brilliant. I think he is the better of the two when it comes to the defensive side of things. But Ben White, I just feel like he's a bit more of a runner, just a bit more. And that's not to discredit Jurrien Timber. I think Jurrien Timber is a fantastic athlete, but Ben White's a bit more gangly, can cover a little bit more ground, and does a fantastic job getting around the outside of the right winger. He has such an engine on him. I just think he adds a little bit more offensively, and I wonder if there's a world where we start playing Ben White in, games where we think the opposition are going to sit in and there isn't too much threat going the other way, and Jurrien Timber in games like against Newcastle or Bournemouth, where they've got a really dangerous left winger that we need to manage a little bit more defensively. I wonder if that will be how that develops. Let's talk Real Madrid then. And they have gone through in quite wild circumstances last night. So they won the first leg 2-1, and then Atletico Madrid were 1-0 up last night following extra time. Now, VAR intervened in the penalty shootout for a wild reason. I mean, apparently Courtois, after the game, he said that, I saw him kick it twice, so I alerted the ref to it. Not sure that's really right, and whether we can trigger VAR reviews ourselves now. But regardless of that, the penalty for Julian Alvarez was disallowed for a double kick. He slips as he's coming into it, very John Terry-esque. He slips and still manages to bury the penalty in the top left corner. And yeah, this is a really odd one because I haven't seen an angle. I'm in bed at this point. I'm long asleep. But I haven't seen an angle this morning where it conclusively shows me there was a double touch. That's issue number one. I can't find that conclusive angle that VAR must have had to disallow a penalty. The other kind of ridiculousness about this rule is, why is it not just retaken? That's the thing I don't understand, because he's not done it deliberately. I think if a keeper springs off the line, he might not have done that deliberately as well, but it gets retaken. And I think James Benge made this point this morning on Blue Sky, so I should credit him for that, because I'm kind of agreeing with that point here rather than making my own point. Why in the keeper's example is it retaken, but in the attacker's example it's not? So there's lots of issues there. I think it boils down to he's scored the penalty, and I don't think the keeper is at any major disadvantage from the double. I'm going to do inverted commas, the double touch, because I don't think there is one, and you can't see one, and I really don't think Courtois can see one. It would be incredible for him to be able to see that in that time period. Obviously, he's a fantastic athlete, but seems strange to me. Seems very, very strange. But either way, we have set up a quarter-final now with Real Madrid. We're into the last 8. Arsenal and Aston Villa, the only English teams to get there, so that might be something we can hold on to at the end of the season. If we get through, we might be the English team that goes furthest, with Aston Villa playing that PSG super team at the moment, who looks so good across 2 legs against Liverpool. So Real Madrid, I mean, lots of discussion going on about, would you rather have Real Madrid or Atletico Madrid? Me personally, I'd rather have Real Madrid. I think both teams are difficult to get through against. I think we'll suffer against Real Madrid for their individual quality, and we would have suffered against Atletico Madrid for their style and that sort of incredible Diego Simeone passion and atmosphere that they can create. So I think both teams would have been a struggle, and consequently I go for the team that I want to play more, which is Real Madrid. This is the sort of tie that we got back into the Champions League and dreamt of, and my very favourite Arsenal goal is the Thierry Henry goal in the Bernabeu back in 2006. Not because I think it's the best Arsenal goal I've ever seen. I'm not saying it's the best Arsenal goal I've ever seen, but it is my favourite because of my memories of that evening, that night, the way he peels off to the corner flag, the statement that it made. And I think, this Arsenal team have come under a lot of scrutiny. I would probably suggest we are going to be up against it to get through against Real Madrid in 2 legs. I would suggest that. I think we would have been up against it with the players we've got available to get through against Atletico Madrid. If we were full strength, I'd probably say, I'd probably answer this question very differently. If we were full strength, I'd want Atletico Madrid because I think we would be able to undo their defence, and I wouldn't want to play the star player of Real Madrid. In this scenario that we're in, I think it's two threes of one, half a dozen of the other. Because of the kind of lack of attacking quality we've got available at the moment. So yeah, for me, it's a glamour tie that I'm excited to see us play in. It's the tie that we should have come back to. The Champions League is what you want. You're going to have to play the very best teams at some point. Let's get this done. And if the Arsenal team can take anything away from what has been a very difficult, very taxing, emotionally taxing and physically taxing season, why not let it be at least a one match victory against Real Madrid? It might not be 2 over the 2 legs, but if we could get a one game victory over them, that would be something to take away. We all remember that Barcelona game, which we won 2-1 at the Emirates. We obviously lost the second leg, I believe 4-1 at the new camp, so we didn't go through, but we all remember that night and the fantastic goals that were scored. The Arshavin moment, I remember watching that very, very specifically because I banged my knee as I jumped up to celebrate, and it hurt for weeks. So yeah, I think it's not too different between the 2 Madrid teams, because we'd struggle against both for different reasons, and for that reason, let's have that glamour tie against Real Madrid. I'm okay with that. How can we beat them? Can we beat them? We're going to have to be elite defensively, aren't we? That's the way to do it, and maybe just catch them out on a break, or with a moment of quality. We do have players who can produce real moments. We do have that. It just feels like a long time since we've seen that. The question will be, will we have Bukayo Saka back to play in those games? Now, the reports are that it's after the international break that Bukayo will be returning. I think there was a picture that went around of him just starting to get involved in team training. I think Zinchenko posted something and he was in the background. Whether he was involved in the full spectrum of team training or just a small bit of it, it's difficult to tell, of course. We don't know how much he's doing. We don't know how much he is able to sprint and run at the moment. So it's all a bit smoke and mirrors. The words from Arteta have been after the international break, and we play Real Madrid in basically a month's time. So will we see Bukayo Saka at full fitness in a month? I don't know. I really don't know. I wouldn't want to bet on it. I think he will feature in the games. That's going to be my bet, actually. If I was to bet in it, I think it would be he'll feature in the games, but probably from the bench. I don't think he'll be fit enough to start, which will be such a shame. And you don't get many draws against Real Madrid. This is something that should be cherished, and it would be fantastic to go up against them with our absolutely full strength team and test ourselves like we did against Bayern Munich last year, and we came up short last year. It would be so nice to be able to go to Real Madrid, to play Real Madrid at the Emirates with a full strength team and go, wow, okay, that's us against the very best, and just see where we're at. Use it as a bit of a yardstick. That would have been nice. We won't get that opportunity, so we will have to support the boys that are out there, and it will be interesting. Obviously, this week we have a game against Chelsea coming up. That is on Sunday at 1:30. So on Saturday, I'm going to do my very best to get a preview pod out for that and then review the game on Monday. If I don't manage the preview pod, I will do a podcast on Sunday afternoon, immediately after the game, a bit more of an instant reaction to get that out for you on Sunday afternoon. So, yeah, to summarise, I think the guys did well last night. Some good performances, especially Sterling and Zinchenko. We got out of there without any real issues from an injury point of view. Declan Rice picking up a yellow card is the only minor issue. A couple of mistakes from Jorginho that were disappointing. I do think we needed to win it, but ultimately we are through. We will play Real Madrid in the quarterfinals of the Champions League. Very, very excited for that. Hopefully we can go to the Bernabeu, get a result. And we play them at the Emirates first. Hopefully we can get a result at the Emirates and then finish the job off at the Bernabeu. But the first priority has to be Chelsea, and I'll be talking about that, like I said, later this week. I'm going to leave it there, guys. Like I said in the middle, if you've enjoyed this episode of Arsenal Unfiltered or any episode of Arsenal Unfiltered, please consider leaving a follow or subscribing or leaving a rating wherever you get your podcast from. It really, really helps. And make sure I can keep bringing you content 3 times a week. All that's left to say now is thank you for following, thank you for listening, and I'll speak to you very, very soon.